Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a wonderful day. Mine started off rough. I was supposed to have physical therapy today, but had to reschedule it for tomorrow because my back was hurting so bad I couldn't even take a shower. Nothing unusual, but still a pain in the ass. But resting in bed has definitely helped. So now I'm just killing everything on the Xbox and chilling. I was born in Florida. Of course, Dad was Navy, so we moved quite a few different places before he retired. And then in 1978, 2 years before he actually retired, we moved to Virginia and they started having our house built. I was 10 years old and really hated being out here in the country. I couldn't stand it. Going from city life to country life and not having everything I was used to was rough to get acclimated to. And it didn't help that I was coming into school as in fifth grade. And of course, I wasn't born and raised here, so I wasn't treated the best. I remember at one point, one of the boys I went to school with actually called me a dog. Uh, Needless to say, that, along with everything with Mom, really did not help my self-esteem. I know, go figure, right? And I made a few friends, but during my entire school time, I had maybe 10, maybe 12 good friends, and that was about it. But in high school, all I wanted to do was just get through it. High school was not fun by any stretch, but I wanted to get through it so I could start my real life, because I wanted to be a wife, I wanted to be a mother, and I wanted to get the hell out of this area. Ugh, I really did. And so, I didn't make any really deep connections in school with hardly anybody, especially boys. I dated, but it wasn't a lot, and it was never anything serious. And in 1982, I was 8th grade. My brother was senior. And when he graduated, he joined the military. And after all his training, and he went on to his first sea duty tour, and this was 1985. And, he wrote home, and he had written to me and asked me if I would be a pen pal to one of his, shipmates that he was friends with. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And we, sent letters back and forth. And when they came in off the 6-month tour, he and I actually met. And then not long after that, he came out here to visit, and we started dating. Just, it was just before I turned 16. And mom and dad were cool. They were fine with it, no problems. And, we dated until we got married. And after we got married, of course, he was stationed Virginia Beach, and that's where we moved to. So my real life was starting, and I couldn't be more thrilled. And then when he was on shore duty, we'd always have issues. Looking back, I don't even remember why, but looking at it from the here and now, I know it's because I didn't love myself, and I didn't let anybody else really love me. I was more about not being me, but being what everyone else expected me to be. He was military enlisted. I was raised and taught that, when somebody's in the military, their spouse can affect their career. So anything a spouse does that can, cause issues and can prevent the military member from getting promoted. And that's what I grew up learning. Whether it was true or not, I'll never know, because I really did make myself fit into the perfect military wife form. I, never mouthed off. I didn't get in trouble. I did everything I was supposed to. He and I had been married about 6 or 7 months. So it was around April of 1987. And I was working as a deli manager at a 7-Eleven not far from the house. And he got into his head that he wanted a motorcycle. And I told him I had a very bad feeling about it, but I wasn't going to stop him, and I didn't. And, part of me also was a little excited because I had never been on one, and I was like, we can go ahead and get on the bike and just go for a ride together and enjoy it. So he purchased one, and then when it was ready and available for pickup, we drove out there. He picked up the motorcycle. I drove the car, and we went back home. And I needed to stop by my work to do a couple things real quick. So after we parked the car, we got on the motorcycle and, drove to my job, and I did what I needed to real quick. And, we hopped back on, and off down the road we went. And we got a total of 12.3 miles on the motorcycle. And it was coming up on dusk, but it wasn't fully dark, but we had our headlight on. And a lady driving for Pizza Hut didn't see us and pulled out in front of us. We hit her car right at the back of the door. And when we hit, we ended up going on the other side of the vehicle between 30 and 40 feet before we landed. I honestly, I don't remember much of the accident or much afterwards. I remember waking up in the rain because it had started raining, and I was hurting, of course, and I was just trying to find my husband because I didn't know where he was. I didn't know really much about anything at that point. And then the next thing I knew, there were ambulances taking us to the hospital. So next thing I remember after that is I'm in the hospital. They're telling me I've broken, 3 bones in my foot, and they, wanted to put a cast on it. And I remember the only thing I cared about was where was my husband? Where was my husband? And after they finally, looked at me and told me where I was, I'm like, look, I need to see him. Where is he? So they told me, and, before they could even put the cast on, I'm out walking to where he was on a broken foot and didn't really even feel it because I'm pretty sure I was in shock. And that's when we were told that when we hit, because I was behind him, the force of stopping that suddenly when we crashed and my weight behind him forced his legs into the handlebars and broke his femur. And he was going to have to be transferred to the military hospital, which he was later that night, and he had to have major surgery to have a metal rod put down the center of his femur bone. I, ended up getting kind of a partial cast on my leg at the hospital because they were like, oh, well, it's your toes that are broken and there's nothing we can do, so we'll cast a little bit so they'll stay straight, and that's that. So they did that, and of course I had to get home. And then the next day I went up to the Navy Hospital in Portsmouth and, was there for his surgery and there for him. And I had that partial cast on, and I was walking down the hall, and disclaimer, this is the only good interaction I've ever had with military doctors. I was walking down the hall, and of course, I wasn't supposed to be walking on the half cast, but of course I did. So it was broken and kind of flopping a little bit. And one of the doctors that was taking care of him saw me walking and, saw that. And he asked, what had happened. And I said, well, they said I broke 3 bones in my toes, 3 of my toes, and they put this on. And he went ahead and sent me down to x-ray and had x-rays taken, and it wasn't the toes that were broken, it was actually the bones in my foot. And he went ahead and casted it right then for me. Then a few weeks later, he put, the little square thing on the heel so you can walk on it better without breaking it. So, here I was. I was, spoiled daddy's girl, taken care of by my parents, and then I went straight to being a wife with an older husband and taken care of at that point. And now I'm thrust into the role of, not only being hurt myself, but having to be the support for my husband, who was now, you know, not permanently, but crippled at the time. I mean, for a long time, it was, you know, me in a cast, him in a wheelchair, me pushing him around to get where we needed to go. I had to do everything for him, which I honestly didn't mind. That's just who I am. But that was a real big snap to reality, because I've always been quite spoiled, and it may sound bad, but I've always gotten my way, and I always did whatever I had to get my way sometimes, and a lot of times those ways weren't the best option, let's say. But I was young. I was in relatively good shape, and I guess I was cute then, but even I just never thought of myself as anything more than average, and it was, you know, I thought it was okay to do whatever I needed to get my way and get what I wanted. But that doesn't excuse what I did. I I played mind games because, man, I grew up with a mastermind game player with Mom. She was a master manipulator, and you don't live with somebody like that without learning a few tricks. So, yeah, I used to employ those tricks, but not anymore. Once I realized that, in the real world, you really shouldn't do those things to ultimately get your own way, I stopped being that person. But that time was one of the really rough ones, and at the time it was the absolute worst thing that had ever happened to me. And I was still working, even though I was had my cast and taking care of him. I was still working full time, so it was a trying time, but we came through it, and we healed and put it behind us. Come to find out, the lady that was driving for Pizza Hut had no insurance at the time that she was driving. And, due to the accident, there were medical bills and, of course, lost time from work and pain and everything like that. So, in the end, we had to sue Pizza Hut to get our bills paid, the medical bills. And I think we started litigation in that. We hired a lawyer, started litigation in 87, and in the late part of 88, late part of 88, I won my part of it. When I got the news that, they had settled for me, I paid the bills, I and paid off other just normal bills that I had, and he had been out on a 3-week small little cruise that they do as workups. So when he came back from that little 3-week debt, I surprised him by showing up in a brand new dress, brand new haircut, had gotten my nails done, rented a limousine, made dinner reservations, and booked us a hotel room. And that was how I picked him up from that. And it was a really great experience that we had. It was fun. And that was also the night that my eldest son was conceived. Because 9 months later he was born. But that was interesting times, to say the least, and one of the harder times I had to go through at that point. But it made me stronger, and I got my son out of it. And there's nothing better than that. My sons are everything to me. Well, I think that's it for this one. I hope you all have a very blessed evening. If you've watched this, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. And I wish you nothing but the best. So fond farewells and lots of love. Good night.